Bueno, estamos en el tercer episodio del podcast Nuestras Voces, un podcast que tiene como objetivo darle la voz a quienes no tienen voz en el mundo. Y si alguien le ha dado voz a millones y millones de personas con su música, con su rebeldía, con su inteligencia, con su defensa de los derechos humanos, es Roger Waters, un amigo de las causas justas, un amigo de los pueblos, que con las capacidades que ha tenido, siempre ha clamado por la justicia, ha clamado por la igualdad y ha estado del lado de los más necesitados, de los oprimidos, siendo él un ciudadano británico y viviendo en el corazón de la bestia en la ciudad de Nueva York. Vamos a ver un material audiovisual, un video que contextualiza para luego conversar con nuestro hermano Roger Waters. Adelante.
En un escenario bañado de luces psicodélicas y ecos de una generación rebelde contra la guerra, por la paz y el amor, nació una de las bandas más influyentes del siglo XX. Pink Floyd no solo marcó un antes y un después en la historia de la música, sino que abrió un portal para entender el sonido como vehículo de crítica, memoria y resistencia. Con obras maestras como The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here y The Wall, la banda británica rompió esquemas sonoros y narrativos, dejando en cada acorde preguntas sin respuesta, retratos del alma humana y denuncias sutiles, y no tan sutiles, contra el sistema, la guerra y el autoritarismo. Money, it's a gas. Con esa frase Pink Floyd no solo se burlaba del capitalismo salvaje, daba el primer golpe sonoro contra el sistema. Desde sus inicios, la banda británica entendió que el rock podía ser más que rebeldía juvenil, podía ser denuncia. Con cada disco, desafiaron las reglas del mercado, la educación autoritaria, la guerra. We don't need no education. El grito de millones de estudiantes alrededor del mundo. Una canción que transformó las aulas en trincheras. En el corazón creativo y político de Pink Floyd estaba Roger Waters, bajista, compositor y arquitecto de los mensajes más agudos de la banda. Un músico que no solo hizo historia, decidió interpelarla. Cuando dejó Pink Floyd, muchos esperaban que bajara el volumen, pero Waters lo subió aún más. Le dio más volumen revolucionario. Se volvió una voz incómoda en los grandes foros. Palestina, Irak, Siria, Julian Assange, la industria armamentista, el apartheid israelí. Donde hay silencio cómplice, él habla. Sus conciertos se volvieron manifiestos. For the ones who call the shots. Crítica directa a los líderes mundiales y sus guerras innecesarias. Waters continuó el sendero del sonido, evolucionando su arte en activismo, transformando el escenario en asamblea y la música en barricada. Sus conciertos, más que espectáculos, son manifiestos, pantallas que denuncian bombardeos, letras que nombran a los desaparecidos, himnos que invitan a desobedecer. Más allá del artista, escuchamos al ciudadano del mundo, al hombre que convirtió la música en barricada, en trinchera, en consigna, a quien no le basta con cantar la historia, quiere cambiarla.
Okay, Roger.
Yes.
It's such an honor to have you in this podcast. This is the third episode, and it's called Nuestras Voces, Our Voices. And we know that you have given voice to millions and millions with your music, with the lyrics of your songs, with your ideas, with your philosophy, defending human rights, with your political activism. So we know that you will give even more voices to the people in the world at this difficult moment. And very honored to have you here, Roger.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's good to see your smiley face again, Jorge.
Yes, we met in New York at your house, and it was a great evening.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yes.
Voila.
So, Roger, maybe the most logical approach, traditional approach, would be to ask you about your personal life, your career, your childhood, your music. But given the current circumstances that humanity is facing, this chaotic birth of the multipolar world, what are your thoughts? Where are we heading? Is the Western political elite consolidating, or is imperialism and its model in a definite decline?
It's in a definite decline. Thank goodness. An easy question to start with. This is so self-evident that, and it's why it's because it's in such a definite decline that they're so crazy, and they're getting crazier every minute. Do you know, I find my focus going more and more to brothers and sisters in other places. So I rarely listen to what Mr. Trump has to say, or the rest of it. My focus on the last couple of days has been, are they called the Hague Group? Mm-hmm. They've had a meeting in Bogota, yes, in Colombia. Yesterday, they may even still be there today. Yes. I was very excited about that fact. When I was last on tour in South America, unfortunately, I didn't get to Venezuela, but I was in Colombia, and I went and met with Gustavo Petro, and we had a very good meeting. I actually asked him, I said, why haven't you gone to the genocide convention with? And I was fascinated by his answer. He told me this. First of all, he told me, I do not have control over the foreign ministry. I am the president of the country, but the ruling class still control the foreign ministry. I can't do that. If I could, I would do it tomorrow. And shortly after that, and we had a long and interesting conversation, and then we took photographs with the Palestinian flag and blah, blah, blah. And I completely believed him. Well, this meeting happening in Bogota yesterday and hopefully today is a follow-on from what was beginning to happen then. Because I didn't just go and see him, I went and saw Lula as well. When I was in Brasilia, I had a meeting with Lula, and I asked him the same question. And he was a little bit more guarded in his answer, but nevertheless, we are together on this question. Sorry.
No, yes. I was listening to you, and it is important because it is also a follow-up with the case that was taken to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. So it's
exactly
the international community trying to do something, but it seems like it's impossible. It's like Israel is like a factory of war, a war factory, and we can't stop them. What can we do from your point of view?
We go on doing what we are doing, which is telling the truth. And they go on doing the only thing they are doing, which is to lie. Mm-hmm. They lie and lie and lie and lie. There's genocide going on, stop. No, there isn't. Nothing. There is no genocide going on. What do you mean? How could you possibly say such an awful thing? We're going to lock you up in prison because you're an anti-Semite. You're anti-Semitic. So they have now in England, they're threatening me with 14 years in prison because I stood up last Saturday and applauded an organization in England called Palestine Action. I applaud them again now on this TV program. But if you do support Palestine Action, which has now been announced that it is a proscribed terrorist organization, of course it's not. These are good, honest, loving people who disapprove of genocide and not just open their mouths like I do, but they actually go and cause damage to one particular company in England called Elbit Systems, which is making the weapons that they are murdering our brothers and sisters with. They don't harm anyone. There's no terrorism involved at all. They've never hurt a hair on the head of any individual, but they do break windows and spray red paint in offices of people who are committing genocide. So that I'm prepared to stand up and say, I support them in their actions. And by you trying to criminalize it, you are part of this mafia that we call Western political civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And it disgusts we, the people, of even some of those of us who live within the confines of what is called Western. It's not, you are no longer civilized. You are barbarians. But the mask is off. You have shown yourselves to us for who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Netanyahu or Donald Trump or Keir Starmer or Macron or whoever. You have taken off the mask and shown us that you are monsters, and we are rising up against you. We, the people, everywhere in the world, not least in Bogota in Colombia, all over Latin America, and all over South America as well. So my heart is heavy because you're murdering my brothers and sisters, but my heart is lightened because I feel the resolve of the resistance to your calumny, if I can put it like that.
It is. You're very clear. Roger, have you cried watching the footage of the aggression, the children mutilated, dying? What have you felt?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the first thing I do in the morning is not weep. And it takes an effort. It's a real effort to wake up in the morning and do something positive and not weep. I mean, I'm in tears now, and it has nothing to do with Palestine. And I'll tell you why it is. It's because my friend, he's a Venezuelan friend, William Camaraco. Yes, do you know him? I'm sure you know him.
He's a good friend.
He's been keeping me up to date on the miners' struggle in Peru and in Bolivia as well. I follow those stories, and he sent me a horrific video of a young girl, I don't know, a teenager, shot several times through her abdomen by the National Guard in Peru, where they are massacring miners. Wow. In order to maintain the illegal government of Peru and to keep our man, Pedro Castillo, who's the legally elected president of that country, to keep him out of power and keep him away, because he's an indigenous man and the ruling class don't like it. So they got rid of him, and they're murdering miners now, and the miners' children as well. So this isn't just Palestine. This is going on in many, many places over the world. And thank goodness people like William are working to keep us informed so that we can know what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Bolivia and Peru and anywhere it is, as well as Gaza. But Gaza is the biggest story, obviously.
Roger, do you believe that social media helps us to know the truth, or it is covering the truth with other kind of content?
It's a two-edged sword. If it wasn't for social media, we would have no chance.
No idea, yes.
The BBC is in the pocket of the ruling class. What Telesur? Who knows who Telesur? I've no idea. Maybe they're wonderful people. I just don't know. Who do Al Jazeera work for? Who has the power in all these larger news organizations? Organizations. I don't know. What I do know is that there are incredibly brave people out there, like my friend Bissam Uda with their iPhones, and they are covering it. And many of the doctors who went to Gaza as well cover it. They speak into their eye, and we get to see those pictures, and they are deeply moving. And you don't have to be hugely intelligent to tell the difference between the ones who are telling the truth. Here's one.
Yeah, Francesca Albanese.
She is in Bogota as we speak now. Yes. She made the opening address to that thing. This is a painting done by my friend Caitlin Johnson in Melbourne, Australia, who writes a piece every single morning, and she paints as well. And bless her, she painted this and then she sent it to me, and it arrived the other day. And now I am close to tears because it's so moving, to me, that we are a close-knit group of people all over the world. And we aren't a few. We are many. They are the few. Donald Trump and the arseholes, they are the few. We are the many. And we are growing, and our voice is growing. So what's going to happen in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20? I've no idea. But I know it's not what they expect and what they want, unless it's the end of everything, because they are so criminally insane that they could destroy us all with a nuclear war. They're getting closer and closer to it with all this nonsense in Ukraine. And so we will see, or not.
Yeah. Since the Cold War, we have never been so close to a nuclear confrontation. Maybe
no.
Do you think they are capable of taking us there?
Yeah, of course. They're insane. You only have to listen to Lindsey Graham for 10 seconds to know, and he has the ear of the president. There are people like this, and it's not just that. All of them, the whole Trump cabinet, they're all insane in slightly different ways. They're not all as crazy as one another, but they're all insane. They all slightly believe in the desperately, deeply corrupt system that they kind of political system that they follow. So I've no idea what's going to happen, but I do know this: every single person on this earth, every human being, has to recognize the fact that they're Homo sapiens first, and their nationality is second, and we have to stand together. And we have to fight back in any way that we can. That's all I think about in the morning. I think, don't weep. What can you do today? And we all have to think. And I'm so encouraged when I see the people in Venezuela out on the streets. When I saw what happened in your elections 3 weeks ago, or whenever it was. When I see this, when I see the people expressing their love for one another and saying, no. We will not live in a world that is run by Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Are you crazy? These guys are monsters, absolute monsters. And somehow they've figured out how to steal everything that has commercial value from the rest of us and keep it for themselves. And we will not have it any longer. So we'll see. We'll see.
When we met in New York, in your house, I at the beginning I was trying to get to know to which party Roger Waters was a member, or if you were communist or socialist. And then when you explained to me your feelings and your thoughts, and you said, I defend the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that's the core of my political activism, I got to know you. You still stand with those principles.
Yeah. And it's been a huge shock to me. I think it wasn't until I was maybe 50 or 60 years old that I understood that they don't, and they never did believe in any of that. It was a lie. Mm-hmm. It was an absolute lie. They never believed in any of it, and they pretended that they did. And that's what Gaza has done for us. It's shown us they don't believe in it. They have no interest in the idea that individual human beings have rights, even though it's enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, and that declaration was made 10th of December 1948. They had their fingers crossed behind their backs. They went, we're going to say this, but we don't believe it. We are superior to them. We're Übermenschen. We believe exactly what the Nazis believed. We are much more important than the Jews or anybody who's different than us. Anybody who's not us is lesser. They're supremacists.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Roger, we learned that your father died, passed away in the war front during Second World War. And during that war, the Jewish people suffered persecution. They were mass murdered. It was horrible. The Holocaust is a terrible thing in our history. But how can we understand today that the Jewish people itself is repeating this manual, this recipe against the Palestinian people? How can this be possible?
Well, there's an error in what you're saying, Jorge, which is the Jewish people. Yes, some of the people who are perpetrating this new Holocaust do claim to belong to the Jewish faith. But this is not the Jews who are doing it. This is the Zionists. This is people who came specifically, mainly from Northern Europe, mainly from Northeastern Europe, from Russia and Poland and, whatever, but also from the United States, from blah, blah, blah. And they came to Palestine to steal the land, the people, to steal it. And do we know whether there was already a plan at the time for it to become a sort of large armed base for the United States of America? I don't know. But I will probably never know the answer to that question. It was all started by very, very rich English people who the Balfour Declaration from 1970 and all that, we know all of this history. The Rothschilds and the blah, 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 and the bank, were they members? Did they follow the Jewish religion? Probably, some of them. But this isn't a manifestation, okay, of a religion gone crazy, notwithstanding the fact that the crazy ones are using what they consider to be the Holy Script of the Torah or the Old Testament of the Bible to say, God told us to do this. This is why I'm an atheist, and I am. And I'm many of the places where I play and I speak and whatever, the majority of the people are Christian or Muslim, or it doesn't really matter what. I'm none of those things. I think that organized religion is a very bad thing for Homo sapiens. If we could sit around the campfire, okay, and say, what would be the best stuff for us to do tomorrow so that we're all happy? Should we raid the next village and kill them all and steal their women and eat their pigs? Or maybe we should talk to them and say, well, hold on a minute. How can we figure this out, how this all works? So in a small way, the caveman idea is intrinsic to any conversation about how do we move forward into a future where no one suffers the death of their child at the hand of somebody who is killing their child because they think that they are ethnically superior, that they are Übermensch, what the Nazis called Übermenschen, and that the ones they're killing are Untermenschen, they're like animals, which is how the Israelis think about the Palestinians. And they use religion to reinforce that idea. But I think the idea of stealing somebody's land is more important in a way. So the religion, if you like, I believe, gets used as an excuse. Oh, we can use it as an excuse because we can bring God into it and say, well, we have to steal their land because we're superior to them. So they're just like animals. It's only like, would you let cockroaches overrun your kitchen? No, you stamp on them. Well, that's what they are. So this is an important philosophical conversation about everything that is, for instance, in the Declaration of Independence, that people have inalienable rights, and was reiterated on the 10th of December in the Declaration of Human Rights. Do we, or is it only me, or is it only them, or is it all right to kill your child, but not all right to kill? It's obviously nonsense. And you don't have to be Albert Einstein to figure out, no, we all have to look after one another. We have to express our love for each other, and we have to do it in whatever way we can, because the people who don't do that, Donald Trump, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, all of them are monsters. But it may be that they should be cared for, but in an institution somewhere, to try and re-educate them into being able to feel like we know it feels to be a human being who loves their brothers and sisters, rather than discarding.
I absolutely agree. And in fact, the founders of the Zionism movement were technically not Jews, because they were atheists. So if you don't believe in God, you cannot be Jew or Christian or Muslim or whatever. So it was used by them to impose an entity, a state, in a land that didn't belong to them. And this has been happening since 1948. And we haven't been able, as an international system, as humanity, to settle this. Do you see any kind of settlement, of agreement to let the Palestinians live in their land and the Israelis live in their land?
Well, as we all know, it didn't matter whether it was the Crusaders in Jerusalem or the Ottoman Empire running it. Up until 1948, everybody lived there, cheek by jowl, and it didn't matter what your religion was or who you were. There was, although there were battles and there were this and that and the other or whatever, it never came down to this idea of a super race. Mm-hmm. So what is going to happen in the future? I've no idea. Is anything going to happen during my life? I've no idea. But I hope so. I want them to be able to have an olive harvest, even, I mean, I have so many friends who are Palestinians and who are Israelis, and so the fact that they are sticking to this idea that no, what's important is whether you've got guns and knives and the will to murder people. Mm-hmm. If you have, you deserve the fruits of the earth. And if you haven't, then you're nobody and you're not important. And the important thing about the way they think, the Trumps of this world, all of them, is they're not interested in any feelings except winning and losing, and they want to win. So they don't empathize. They have no empathy in their heart. What you and I have, and the most important and precious gift that you and I received from our parents or from our genes or whatever, was the capacity to empathize with others. That is something they're missing. They don't have that at all. And I feel so sorry for them. What a disgusting state to have to live in, where you can even for a second think that somebody else's child doesn't matter. What's going to happen? I don't know. It's impossible to, particularly when it's complicated by the nonsense in Ukraine. It's all nonsense, all of it. But maybe it's just Nero. It's like the end of the Roman Empire, possibly. So it's like the world is run by Nero and Caligula. Yeah. So it's all people beating each other to death with lobsters. And now, so, well, hold on, this isn't working. Imagine if Caligula or Nero had gone, perhaps we shouldn't try and rule the world. Mm-hmm. We can't. And they were right. They couldn't. And it didn't last forever. And it was very, very bloody and unpleasant when it all came to an end. But maybe there's a possibility. It's like that bloke, not Pavlov. I've forgotten his name now, but in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Russian, he was third in command on a nuclear submarine, Russian, and he refused to put his key into the thing to fire the missile. We'd all be dead, all of us. That would have been the end of the world, right? And that one guy, whose name I can never remember, prevented it.
Thank God.
Because if there is a God.
Yes. Well,
no, thank him. I wish I could remember his name. I can't remember. I can hardly remember my name, never mind his name. But what an amazing thing. He went, no, because his commanding officer and the other bloke, there were three of them, went, yeah, come on, let's do it. And he went, no. Wow. Amazing. He's not, I can't remember his name. Most people don't even know he ever existed or any of the story at all. That one man said no. So I'm glad I'm glad at least that the Soviet Navy had rules of engagement where they had that potential safety check going on. Otherwise, because some of the close calls that we've been up against, maybe the closest calls were in Korea, when Truman still thought, well, we're the only ones with them. Let's just fucking kill everybody. Thank God the Russians got a nuclear weapon shortly afterwards, because God knows what the United States would have done if they were the only one with. Not that I'm a great believer in nuclear deterrence. I'm not, but I'm a great believer that we should get rid of them. I talk about it every single show that I ever do anywhere in the world.
We should get rid of all the nuclear weapons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, obviously. It's insane that there's a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons. Apart from anything else, it's incredibly expensive. We need that money to feed people who haven't got anything to eat and to give them shelter, i.e. all the things that we talked about on December the 10th in Paris, basic human rights, freedom from hunger, freedom from oppression, freedom from cold, freedom, the basic needs. So if you've got a baby, it's not going to freeze to death and it's not going to starve to death. The Israelis are now starving children on purpose, and we've all seen the pictures.
Roger, I was searching here. I believe the name of this Russian or Soviet Marine was Vasily Alexandrovich Arkhipov. That's
Arkhipov. Of course it was, yeah. His name is in there. It's like Jeremy Irons. It's just I can't always remember it. Arkhipov, yeah. We salute him.
Yeah. Roger, you said that you believe that imperialism and the system has been unmasked. And between Gaza and the Epstein issue, which is gross, how can they still be in power? I mean, they are not only unmasked, they are naked and they are totally immoral, decadent, but they are still in the White House, in Downing Street, in all the palaces, government palaces all over the world, in the Western Hemisphere.
They learned a lot from Goebbels, so make the lie a big one and keep telling it over and over again, and people will believe it's the truth. So the Third Reich lies that they were telling about, it's exactly the same now. They tell the same lie over and over. They've been telling the socialism, communism lie ever since Marx, really, for 200 years. And why? Because it's convenient to them. Okay, so when you said, back to, since 1948, I very nearly said since 1692. Let's not forget Columbus sailing the ocean blue. It's since the Northern Europeans, probably a freak of the weather, invented big wooden boats that they could fill with soldiers with swords and armor, so they could go fight and they could get across the Atlantic and steal everything and kill everybody. keep a few, just enough to work as slaves. That's what they're trying to do with the miners now in Bolivia. They would say, no, you can't mine the gold or whatever they mine in the rivers anymore in their little collectives and family businesses and whatever. We're going to sell it all to the Americans. You can work as slaves in the mines for the man. The man is a European, by the way. You are indigenous. You'll do as you're told and you'll work till you die. And when you we don't care how long you live, but we will make sure that you work yourself to death and you won't see anything out of it. You're a slave, or you will be if the Americans get their way in Bolivia. Mm-hmm. But luckily, there are 300,000 miners in Bolivia, and they're going, no. Well, if they keep, who knows? I'm so wish I was there at the roadside with them, stopping those trucks going into Lima to deliver Rice Krispies and caviar to the ruling class. They're saying no. Who knows what will happen? You know, I don't know what will happen.
Yeah. It's unpredictable. But
that's why. Sorry to come back to the Venezuelan elections again, but it's why the election a few weeks ago was so important to show, hey, this is like us giving Uncle Sam the finger. No, we are a socialist country and we're going to stay a socialist. And no, however much you bully us and mistreat us and try and invade in dribs and drabs. And from time to time, they've talked about invading Venezuela, big military invasion. Yes. No, we can take it over. They can become our slave. No.
Yeah.
And you've said no.
You're right, Roger. You know, Simón Bolívar, before he became the liberator in 1805, he was when he went to Rome and he swore that he would liberate Venezuela and other countries. He made an analysis. This is written by his master, Simón Rodriguez, and he said exactly this: the European civilization has given everything except for the cause of humanity. This was 230 or 20 years ago. Is there anything to expect from Europe? You being European, British, at this moment, do we have something to expect from Europe?
You know what's interesting about you reading me that bit of Bolivar, and what he was wrong. It's not all European, it's mainly Middle Eastern. Most of the thinking in the development and civilization comes from the Arab people. It's got F all to do with Northern and Western Europeans. Yeah, we chipped in a bit, a little bit of Shakespeare here or there, but everything that Newton came up with had been found out by Arabs hundreds of years before. So the idea that somehow that Western Europe was the fountain of civilization is actually complete nonsense. It's the lie that they've told to make themselves feel superior. No, we got good at traveling and killing people and stealing stuff. That's what Western civilization got good at. And isn't it fascinating that the whole of NATO, all those European countries now, are standing with the genocide? They're standing absolutely against any humanity there, not the people. The people are taking to the streets in huge numbers, but the governments, including the UK is the worst of the lot, are saying, no, we were right all along. They are savages and we should just kill them all and steal everything. And they're open about it. Well, I'm glad they are, actually, because people are beginning to have to go, wow. And we believed in the National Health Service, for about 10 minutes before Margaret Thatcher came along and sold it to American companies and Tony Blair, but there was a certain feeling after an hour in Bevan, and the torch was carried on in England by Michael Foot and Anthony Wedgwood Benn and a few other genuinely left-wing socialist thinkers that maybe we could have a welfare state in England. And that was eventually crushed, and now it's gone. So you have the puppet Keir Starmer doing what he's told and enjoying it, murdering babies. And I'm so ashamed to be an Englishman right now.
Is Europe the 51st state of the United States?
I don't think so. I think actually MI6 and MI5 have a bit more power than those of us who are not in those corridors know. I think there's still enough left of the old English ruling class with enough money that they still are stirring the pot in ways that are very evil and quite powerful. But I could be wrong. And what leads me to suppose that is just that the corridors of power in the United States of America are so transparently full of morons. It's hard to believe that they're not being manipulated in some way by people who went to Eton. I know Boris Johnson went to Eton, and so Eton produces its own share of moronic people. But nevertheless, I honestly don't know. I don't think that I don't subscribe to the idea that it's only the USA that's bad. And it's only the USA that has any power and whatever. I don't think it's true that. But I could be wrong.
It's a group of corporations, and most of them are in the US. But it's not about the people from the United States or the people from Europe or Britain. It's about these corporations ruling these countries and having control over the governments of these countries. It's kind of a unified entity that works together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's interesting in the United States is that it's so open that AIPAC completely admit and totally open that they completely own Congress.
Yes.
And they can name every single Congressperson who they own and how much they've paid them and why they have to vote pro-Israel in every vote in Congress always, because they're bought and paid for. And everybody admits it and is open about it. And they go, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, all the lobby system in the United States would be classified as corruption here in Venezuela or in Europe. But there it's totally legal. Huh?
Yeah, completely legal. Yeah.
Roger, you live in New York and you know the New Yorkers. And there's something I have to ask. It seems like the political class of the USA is all rotten, but suddenly this man in New York, a Democrat, yes, Zoran Mamdani, has appeared, and he speaks so firmly. He's so clear with his ideas that it seems it's like awakening hope again in the United States. Do you expect something from him?
Yes, I do, but I don't know what it's going to be. What's fascinating is he's from Uganda.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I find that interesting. I find that really, really interesting. Wow, how interesting that is. My only concern about him is that I heard him in one speech saying he wants to be everybody's friend. So he wants New York to be a city for the billionaires as well. No, fuck them. No. This is a class war. And if you think it's not, you've got another thing coming. You cannot be friends with Zuckerberg and Musk and represent the working class. Yeah, it doesn't. That is not. There's no middle way with this. There really is.
True. We agree. But he said something like, if he was the mayor of New York and Netanyahu goes to the United Nations, he would detain him. So he would not be his friend, at least.
Yeah. Well, that's the law actually in England as well, weirdly enough. I don't know if you've noticed, but Netanyahu hasn't been to England recently. So there's a question mark because there is enough in the legal community in England that they would make that move.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Mike Mansfield and others, they would. But no idea what would happen. But he's not going to make that move, so we will see. I think he's going to be very careful where he steps.
Huh?
I think he'll go to South America quite soon. I thought that was fascinating that he was looking at maps of Argentina, because it's perfect for him now with that arsehole running Argentina.
That's the thing in Latin America. We have Cuba, Díaz-Canel, Nicaragua with Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo. We have Maduro, but we have Milei, we have Noboa. So how can we work together with so deep differences between us, amongst us? How can
the people? We have to. I did a tour back in 2023. I toured South America, and so I was driving around some of your biggest cities, and when you look around, you look out the car window and you see the people on the street, and you see the way people live, and then you meet activists like. Although we don't share a common language, I talked to Monica Benicio, who lives in Rio. She's the widow of Marielle Franco, who was murdered by the military police back in the day and the whatever. And there's a big movement, and Marielle still has a big influence on politics, particularly city politics and even national politics in Brazil. They talk about the seeds of Marielle Franco as being those women who followed her and things. So it's always down to that. It's like, who is this woman who I can see helping others and loving people and expressing her love? And I tear up slightly even when I think about people. But so do other people. Other people tear up when they think about it, and they think, that is the bread of life. The bread of life is the love that I can give to other human beings. And there are people who exemplify that. And it may be that this guy in New York, he may be one of those, and I hope he is, and I suspect, my guess is he will be elected because he's got a huge mandate now. He got 500,000 votes, and that was in a primary. He needs 700,000 votes to be elected as the next mayor of New York. I just hope he doesn't make any deals with the enemy, because they will only make deals in order to get the opportunity to stab him between the shoulder blades and cut his heart out.
As they always do.
As they always do, yeah. So, what's his name? Zaron. Yeah. Mamdani.
Zoran.
Yeah. Well, good luck to him.
Roger, and I don't know if you are aware, informed, or if William Camacaro is keeping you updated about this situation with the Venezuelan migrants in the U.S. They are all linked, to supposedly to this gangs, TDA and whatever. We have 252 Venezuelan males imprisoned, or maybe it's kidnapped in El Salvador in a prison of maximum security. We haven't even received a letter from El Salvador confirming the list of the names of the people, of the men that are imprisoned there. But it's just they are all part of a gang, and they have no due process, no defense. How can this be happening before our eyes?
Well, I'll tell you how. The people who arrest them in the United States don't have a number or a name or anything. ICE are unidentifiable, and they're not required to identify themselves, or where they just. So they are the stormtroopers. They don't answer to anybody, and there's no law. And the other thing about the Venezuelans that you described, that William was telling me about the other day, is they steal their children.
Yeah.
So, and there are hundreds of Venezuelan children being sent to through a foster system in America. So the parents are locked up in El Salvador or something with no, as you say, no recourse to the law.
Mm-hmm.
They can't appeal to anybody or say, I'm not in a gang. What are you talking about? Look, what's your name and number? Bang!
Yeah.
You know, it's gangsterism. It's pure gangster. Oh, and you've got kids, we'll take them. But kids don't know where the parents are. The parents don't know where the kids are. There's no record of anything. There's no, they're monsters. They're gangsters and they're monsters.
Yeah. Well, we have met with some of the mothers that were deported to Venezuela, but their babies are kidnapped in the US. They don't even know where they are. And they say that they can't understand how this happens in the USA. Because
what the mothers? Because they believed.
Yeah, they believed in the American dream, and they thought they were going to have a better life and the best democracy and the perfect system. But now they see the beast before their eyes, and they are surprised, and they are suffering in despair because they don't have access to their children or to their husbands.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Disgusting. Roger, yes, please, go on.
No, it's not beyond belief. You know, the lie, it's interesting that you should say that. So that what you're telling me is that Venezuelan women or Venezuelan people, they have go as immigrants to America, believing that America as a society believes in human rights. Mm-hmm. They don't. Okay, so they're learning. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They absolutely not at all. It's a lie.
It's a lie, yes. And we believe that the real dream is here in Venezuela. It's happening here.
Well, good. That's fantastic. You know, I saw back in the day, back 6-7 years ago, when I started to get involved a little bit in my fights with Richard Branson, you know, and when Guaido, or whatever his name was making his daft challenge to become the new czar of Venezuela as a puppet for the Americans, you know, and I started to look into it all a bit. I looked into a bit, and I saw what was happening a bit in the communities.
Yeah.
You know, I even actually supported the guy who ran against Pacho, who's the president now, the young guy, but the other guy, because he was a community worker and he'd been involved in food distribution and for hundreds of years. You know, he was an older guy, but that's Chile. Sorry, I'm talking about Chile. Now. Yeah. But slightly similar situations are happening everywhere. So it is a battle. It's a battle for the beliefs, if you like, of the people. So in a way, it is a battle between socialism and capitalism, and you'd have to take your pick at some point. You have to make a decision and say, do I want a very few people to suddenly have $150, $200 billion and not happy with that, wanting $1 trillion, or do I want enough to eat and a decent education and free universities and public transport? And what are all the things that you can provide in a society that is socialist? Very difficult to provide them in a society where the only defining factor is whether or not corporations make profits. That's all, nothing else. That's all that matters. So where we live and learn. Hopefully we live and then learn.
Of course. Roger, you know you are invited to Venezuela, but I know you would like to make concert here. We would like you to play with the Youngsters National Orchestra System, which is one of the best of the world. I want you to meet with President Maduro, but I dream that I take Roger Water to the communities, to the communes, and you can speak freely to the people that is planning. They have become the government in their commune, and they have all the
Great.
support of the Venezuelan institutions, and they have been empowered, and a different, I won't say the real democracy, but a different kind of democracy is happening in Venezuela. And the aggression, the blockade, the sanctions have been a blessing in this sense, because we have awakened, and now the people know that they can have the power and they can take their destiny in their hands. And that's something I would like Roger Waters to be witness of.
Well, that's great news. I'd love to see it. I only wish I keep meaning to learn to speak Spanish, but maybe it's beyond me. But I think you were talking about Abreu.
Yeah, yes, el maestro José Antonio Abreu. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know something of the history of that movement, and I've followed it a bit over the last, 30, 40 years.
We have more than 1.3 million youngsters and children are part of the orchestra system in Venezuela, and we are 30 million. So
what's it called? What's the system called?
El Sistema Nacional de Orquestas, the National Systems of Youngsters Orchestras of Venezuela. And it's great. Roger, we have to, of course.
Who was the kid who came out? Dudamel.
Dudamel, yes. He's a great director, yes.
He came out of that program, right? And he's one of the greatest composers.
One of the greatest of the world, yes.
Orchestrators and conductors. Yeah, go on.
Roger, how much of Pink Floyd is in you now when you're 86 years old, I believe? How much?
Shut up. Oh. No, I'm only 81. Excuse me.
Okay, 81. You're still young. So,
Christ, I should have worked harder on my makeup.
How much of Pink Floyd? How much did Pink Floyd influence the Roger Waters of today?
I think you put the question the wrong way around. Oh, the Roger Waters of today. Yeah. Not at all. Not at all. Pink Floyd's irrelevant. It's kind of irrelevant. My heart and soul, which is the only things that are important about me and my music, I was born with. I lived through the death of my father. I learned at my mother's knee. I learned about right and wrong. I learned about all of that stuff. It had nothing to do with Pink Floyd, ever. There were some other people who I worked with in a band that was called Pink Floyd, but I share very little with any of them. Mm-hmm. But my music, A and B, and I wrote most of that stuff from when we are. I wrote most of it. And so Pink Floyd was huge for me because it was the name of the band that I was in when I had huge success when I was a very young man. I'm not saying the others didn't take part, they did, but the band is sort of, the only thing I've said about Pink Floyd is that after we started to disagree about a lot of things, particularly David Gilmour and I, after we made Dark Side of the Moon, and we could have given up. We could have stopped then, and that would have been fine. Dark Side was a great, and we didn't because we were frightened. Gilmour tried desperately to start a solo career back then, after Dark Side of the Moon, and he tried again in 1978 as well, and he couldn't. And the reason he couldn't is because he's not a writer. He's never had an idea in his life, and he never will. And I'm not saying he's a great guitar player and a great singer and blah, 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 but he's never had an idea. I, on the other hand, have never stopped having ideas since I was sort of tiny in a way. And it's not a burden, it's a great blessing to me. I'm glad I have ideas. I'm glad I still have something to say. And I'm glad that I can think about the miners in Bolivia and feel that, also there's some ladies I try and help in Bolivia to grow trout in the lake up in the Andes so they can feed their children. There's little things like that, whether they're just as important to me as whether I write a new opera or make a record or do a tour. Because doing tours is, it's hard work. The reward is great, but not the financial reward, but the reward of that sense of communication. So when I was in South America in 23, in November and December 1923, after October the 7th, after, the October the 7th in Palestine, I was doing gigs. And so I could put up on the screen, genocide, end genocide now, blah, 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 blah. That, and people were going, you have to condemn Hamas. No, I don't. Hamas is the legitimate elected government of the Palestinian people in Gaza. And they have an absolute moral and legal duty to resist the occupation, even with lethal armed resistance. So the law is on their side, and so am I, because they're illegally occupied and you are committing genocide and murdering them. So to be able to stand on stage and say that is a great release for me to be able to do it. And I will go on doing it as long as I'm well enough to go on doing it. So we'll see. Pink Floyd I love being in that band. We weren't a great band of brothers. I love Nicky, the drummer. We're still good friends. I see him, We had a few moments like that when we're in 1987 and when they went off on tour and blah, 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 because it did turn into sides and he had to pick a side and he picked that side. Well, fair enough. That's the side his bread was buttered. I get it. I understand it. But we are friends, but he was the only friend apart from Sid early on. But Sid when, got some kind of mental illness, probably schizophrenia. And so he sort of disappeared from our lives. He came up to London in 1964, and by late 67, he was gone. It was only a three-year thing. He was like a brilliant star and he flared brightly, and then he was gone. And I still miss him. He was, but he was it's never like, I was never friends with him like I was with people of my own age. Sid's 2 or 3 years younger than me, Sid. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're 8, you're not best friends with a 5-year-old, are you?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I was. And you tend to be friends with your own classmates, people who are in the same class with you or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, friendship's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
It is. But which path or which means has been more effective for you to transmit your ideas and your message? Your music or your political activism?
I have my voice because of my music.
Of course.
So they're sort of inseparable, I think. I wouldn't have as loud a voice I do. I don't think. I'm not very good at meetings. People have often said, why didn't you go into politics, and whatever? And I said, I couldn't do it. I get so bored in a meeting. Yeah. And I don't really like the sound of what other people have to say necessarily. I'm too much of it, I'm too kind of idiosyncratic and maybe too selfish and what to go and kissing babies. I love babies, but the idea of having to be political in order to get what is just not in my nature. I need to be able to say what I want to say, sing what I want to sing, love the way I want to love, be who I am. And if I can do some good, great. And I try not to do harm, obviously. And I am interested in people. I'm interested in other people and what their lives are like. Anyway.
We know you are, and you demonstrate it each day. And even when you went, or you have gone several times, to Piers Morgan's show, and the interviews. And I don't know if you noticed that he shifted his position. Now he believes that there's a genocide in Israel. But when we see you, Roger, you are in fact doing politics there. I mean, and you are like hope for many. It would be billions of people in the world that would vote for Roger Waters if we could.
Well, that's nice to hear. You never know. Maybe I've got a second career out there somewhere in politics. Obviously, I can't get involved in political life in America because I'm not an American citizen, and I never will be. I can't think of anything I want less than to be a citizen of the United States of America. It's bad enough being a citizen of the UK. Funnily enough, when I was at school in Cambridge, I only spoke in one debate ever at school. And the debate was, this house believes in the principle of a world government. And I was the main speaker for that proposition. And I sort of believed that then, and I was like 15 or 16 years old. And I kind of still believe it now. Nationalism is, by and large, not a great thing. It doesn't seem to have done us very much good. It's like I always keep saying to people, what you have to remember, particularly the white supremacists in the United States of America, is that we're all African. I mean, we know the genome, we can look at it now and we can see where we're all from, and we're all from North Africa, or maybe a little bit of West Africa as well, if we look at paleontological evidence and so, but we're all African.
We are, yes.
We spread out across the world, and because we intermarried, and there's some of us look Chinese and some of us don't. But we're all the same. We're all African, and I love that. And it's funny, when I've said that at times in foreign countries, there's this exhibition, the Pink Floyd, it's called Their Mortal Remains, and it went round, and Michael Cole was trying to make a few quid off it by traveling it around the world. I went with Nicky to one in where was it? In Milan, in Italy. And there were a lot of press there, and we did a sort of press conference at the opening thing of it like that. And I'll never forget sitting there and saying to 250 Italian journalists, we're all African. Because they were, what's he talking about? I'm not Italian. It really got under their skin. The idea, what are you talking about? No, we're Italian. And so it was very difficult for them to understand even the concept that we're all have the same ancestors. All right, you have to go back a couple of 100,000 years, but no further than that to find out that Homo sapiens were all related. We're actually slightly related to Neanderthals, but there's none of them left, but there's a little bit of the genes left
in our DNA. But in fact, we are proud of being Africans, in origin.
Yeah.
Very proud. Honored. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Well, the fact that we're all the same race, there's only one race, the human race. That's it. Yes. But it's such a relief. It's such a relief, because that shit only came out in the 1980s, or that, people didn't know that before. So all those weird sciences about how we're millions of years more advanced than black people and the crap, it all just disappeared into thin air. Oh, what a relief.
It is a relief. Talking about Africa, have you been following these revolutionary processes in Mali, Burkina Faso?
No.
It's really interesting.
I'm glad, and I look forward to trying to follow it a bit more closely now that you've shaken your fist at me. No, I'm serious. But I can only follow so much. And what we're following, the trout population in the Andes, in Bolivia, and you lot in Venezuela, and how you're getting on under the sanctions, and all of that. And my other friends in Colombia and Chile, I have lots of friends in Chile as well, and Brazil, and I have lots of friends. Maybe it's because I've never really traveled and played in Africa, so I could have developed an attachment for friends in Senegal, for instance. I know at one point I gave them a lot of money. I gave some villagers a ton of money to some fishing village somewhere. I tell you who ran that program, Jeffrey Sachs.
Okay.
It was when he was in the middle of his whole thing about we must get them all mosquito nets, and it was a sort of, slightly white man's burden thing of let's help them figure out how to not all die of AIDS and malaria. But very laudable. I love Jeffrey Sachs. I mean, why he's not running America, along with, you could name about half a dozen of them. He and Mearsheimer's a bit weird, but if it was him and Mearsheimer and about 4 or 5 others who you could name, that's the cabinet. They could probably pull it together, and make it into a decent country.
That would be a dream team for the United States.
It would be a dream team. Yeah, it would be great. But how fascinating that the country and the people of the country are not allowed to have leaders like that because it doesn't suit the corporations. So they have to have whoever the corporations give them, And of course, then the people who the corporations give them do whatever the corporations tell them to do. And that's the way it works. It's completely corrupt.
Yeah.
And that's the way they like.
Roger, if you had to choose one of these men I'm going to mention, who would you choose? Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, or Hugo Chavez?
Right. It's definitely either Che or Hugo Chavez. I never met either of those men, but I would have loved to have met either of those men. Yeah. But to choose for what, if we were having a more serious conversation, I would say, well, to choose for what?
Yeah. No, because
Gandhi was a racist, so I'm not a big fan of Gandhi's. Gandhi believed in the caste system, I'm told. So that's a bit of a worry for me. Once religion raises its ugly head, I get a bit weird. So maybe that's why I like Che and Hugo Chavez. I mean, I've no idea whether Hugo Chavez was religious or not, but one assumes that they're atheists. I could be completely wrong. I've no idea.
He was a believer, but not in the church. He believed in God, and he believed especially in the human race.
Yeah, well, good. That's good enough for me, I would like to have met Mandela, People say to me, I use him when people say to me, yeah, but what if they lock you up for 14 years? You can't do any good when you're in prison. And I go, well, what about Mandela? He did 25 years on Robben's Island, and yet he came out and he led his people into a new... Now, what South Africa is going to do with the fact that the rich people never let grip of the country and they still totally own it, and black people are still totally downtrodden. What we don't know. That's in the future. That's something they've got to figure that out for themselves. And then you get into it's so convoluted. Anyway, that was a trick question, but
well,
that's
Roger,
all right.
I think it's been a great conversation, and we must say that we love Pink Floyd because it let us know Roger Waters, and
that's right.
And you are so important for. Maybe you're not aware of it because you're humble, but you're so important to many struggles and battles that are happening in the world at the moment. I've spoken about you with President Nicolas Maduro, and he admires you, and he would love to have the opportunity to have a long conversation with you like he had with Comandante Chavez, and you can see the sunrise and read some poetry and sing and just never stop battling for humanity, because you are
thank you. I appreciate it.
Very, very important.
I've got the Quattro hanging on my wall in the library.
Do you know how to play it?
No.
Not yet.
No, no, it's to learn a new instrument now is beyond me. You know. I love to sit down at the piano now. I play the piano more than I play the guitar, and I love playing the piano. So
my son, who is the grandson of Hugo Chavez, is a musician, and he's composing. He plays the flute and the violin, and he loves Roger Waters as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. How old is he?
He's gonna become 18 in September.
Okay, well, good for him.
Yes. So, Roger, I hope I cannot travel to the US because I'm sanctioned, fortunately. And I don't think I will travel to the UK, but we would love to see you in Latin America again, in our America. And you have given millions your voice, your message, your energy, and your love. You spoke about love many times. Che Guevara said that the revolutionaries should be moved by feelings of love. And that is the core of the liberation projects. The fact that we can love each other and we can share that love and change the world with love, this is why we are alive and we are struggling for justice.
In that case, I choose Che.
Yes, he is. Thank you so much, Roger.
Hey, it's been great to talk to you, Jorge. Thank you for having me on, really. And I promise I'll come soon.
Yes, and I will send you some material about these African revolutions happening now.
Please do. Yeah, that would be great. All right, brother.
Thank you so much. Venceremos. We will prevail.
Thank you.